and welcome to Do the Right Thing, your weekly writing prompt podcast. I'm Matias.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I are aspiring word chefs, but we never actually cook up some books.
Exactly. So we're doing a challenge. Each week we sit down. Our goal is to write a complete short story using 3 of 4 randomly generated words.
Then we come on the podcast, we read the story, we talk about what we learned in writing it, and then we talk about stories sent in by you listeners.
Exactly. We're simply here to help you do the right thing.
A doof media production. Hells
If
yeah.
you really think about it, writing is definitely just like cooking, in a sense.
It is exactly like cooking.
Yeah, because you get all these pieces, and you have to go to like a farmer's market.
Right.
And then you just throw it into a pot and fucking hope you don't burn it.
Yeah, and that's how you get a story. Yeah, like, there's literally no difference. I don't even know why they're 2 different words.
Yeah. Cooking up this plot.
Delicious. So how are you doing this week, Jarvis?
Oh, God. I am doing quite well. It has been a quite hectic week, I guess. I know I mentioned it on last week's podcast, but I have been moving my mom from Austin to Killeen, Texas, which has proven to be a far more difficult task than I thought at first. Mostly because I did not know that Mom had so much stuff, and that so much stuff cannot fit into 2 tiny cars.
Right.
But thankfully, I am back home. We had just finished. It was great. Me, my mom, and my entire family cheered when we put that last bin into her place. So it was great. And I just drove back. So I'm tired.
Glad. Yeah, you need a nap.
Yeah. I mean, okay. If you think about it, right? I think a normal human only needs 10 hours per week of sleep.
I think that might be slightly underestimating the amount of time they need. On the other hand, go ahead.
I mean, what? That's like 1.3 hours per day.
That's true.
Kind of plenty.
That's kind of indulgent, I think. I'm very confused by my own body because normally my body just feels like exhausted if I don't get at least like 10 hours of sleep or something like that. It's been like that for years. And then I started taking this antidepressant, and so now I just automatically wake up after like 6 and I don't feel tired, and I don't I'm like am I just like what is did I actually just like not need 4 of those hours the whole time, or am I like currently like way under? Like what is going on? So
I don't know. I mean, I have heard
concerned
that antidepressants do help unify your sleep schedule, but that is strange that you're going from your normal half day of sleep to almost nothing, I guess.
Yeah, basically. Like, it's not even like that I can wake up after 6 hours, but I should sleep longer. It's like, no, after 6 hours I'm like ready to wake up, unless if I like try to go back to sleep. So
wow.
Well, so that's interesting. But I'm not necessarily complaining. I'm just concerned. So,
I mean, I am very hopeful that it doesn't just like catch up to you one day.
Yeah, and then I have to sleep for like a whole week straight, and I starve to death.
God. I don't think the human body can do that.
I could go into a hibernation state.
Hibernation?
I feel like hibernation state should be a band name. Okay, that's enough tangents for now. Jarvis, do you want to ask me what this week's words were? Because then you can ask me which ones I used.
Yes, Matias. Hey, what was this week's word?
This week's words were stir, reverse, belly, and compound.
Okay, and which ones did you throw into the creative soup?
I use stir, belly, and compound. I had initially meant to use reverse, and then I realized I didn't, so I put in compound instead. So
okay, nice.
So I was like, stir. Let's have some soup in there. So some cooking. Belly, that also is some cooking. And I wanted the reverse made me think of someone being wrong about something. Like, it's actually the reverse. And so that was kind of the initial starting points, which you'll see in the first paragraph.
All right, cool. So before we get into it, is there anything that you want to tell us about your story?
I was very tired while writing it. I'm
All
also
right.
in the middle of moving, except I'm moving myself, and I don't have quite as many trips as you did, so it's
Wow.
I it's not quite as bad, but yeah, definitely a little stressed right now.
Oh
Hoping
yeah,
to
moving
yeah.
is always stressful because it always takes a lot more time than you would ever think.
Yeah.
But
Actually, after we record this, I have to go move my mattress while it's raining, so that's fun.
oh, wet bed,
Mm-hmm.
water bed.
Yeah, waterbed. Okay, yeah, let's just get into it.
All right.
So I ended up just calling the story Dinner. Simon stirred the sauce. How did it go again? Cream for sure, got that, and Parmesan, and he got the little potatoes. He wasn't sure if they were the same brand, but they looked the same. It was probably fine. How different could potatoes be, anyway? So the sauce was supposed to have garlic. He was sure of that, but he wasn't sure if it was actual garlic or just garlic powder. Simon opened the fridge, realized you don't put garlic in the fridge, and checked the grocery cubby. There were potatoes, and okay, there was potatoes. He turned in the little kitchen, briefly surprised by how much room he felt he had. He shut that thought down before he remembered why there was more room. It didn't work. The cabinet did have what he was looking for, though. Garlic powder it was. Would probably be fine. When's dinner going to be ready? Darlin asked from the table. In a minute, Munchkin. Remembering all the steps was so hard. He usually didn't have to remember them all. He put it together, remembering the steps more or less. Pre-baking the potatoes, making sure the sauce, most of the flavor coming from the melted Parmesan, was just the right consistency. It wasn't really a sauce, technically, but that's what they all called it, after Darlin had started to. Simon stopped for a moment, smiling. She had thrown a tantrum one night, asking over and over again for the sauce, and after a good long while of offering things to her, it finally struck them what she wanted. He remembered the look on the face of her. That moment where her eyes got bright, and she raised on her heels and sort of hopped up a little. Daddy, the sauce is burning. Oh! He took just a moment to press a sleeve to his eyes, then whirled, rushing to take the pan off heat. A thin wisp of smoke circled upward. He hopped up to bat it away. Despite his efforts, the smoke alarm went off, shrill. He sighed, got a broom, and pressed the off button with a handle. Stress compounded stress, it seemed. He gave an apologetic smile to Darlin. Thanks for the heads up, kiddo, and got back to cooking. Eventually it got done, best as he could, anyway. He put the bowls down, both full of little potatoes, with a little bit of tomato as well, and a bit of garnish on his, only a single leaf on hers. And the sauce drizzled all over the top. Darlin stuck a potato with a fork and put it in her mouth. It's not the same. Simon's heart fell. Damn. He'd hoped it would be close. It didn't hurt for being insulted, but just feeling the loss again. A pressure built up in his eyes. The sense not just that she was gone, but that they, Darlin and him, were both less, too. He pushed the thought down, to deal with later, shoved it back with a dam that was constructed of delays and blocked off thoughts and denials. But it's just different, she said. He looked up. Her smile wasn't wide, wasn't genuine, but she had a smile on. She was trying just as hard as he was. I like it. Tears overflowed that shoddily patched dam, and Simon knelt down and hugged his daughter. I miss her too, you know, he said, his voice wavering along that edge. He wouldn't be able to forgive himself for going over. Tears were fine. A voice breaking? He couldn't. I know, Daddy. I know. They hugged for another minute. 2. He broke the hug, settled his hands on her shoulders. Her cheeks were streaked, and she wiped at them with big sleeves. I love you, darlin'. I love you too, Darlin said. Let's fill that belly, huh? And he poked her. She smiled and looked away. When he poked her again, a 1, 2, 3 from each pointer finger, She let a single hiccup of a laugh out. You want to watch a movie while we eat? Her eyes widened. Really? Yeah, really, he nodded. Go pick a movie. I'll make popcorn and finish up the steak. Okay. And she dashed off to the living room. They ended up watching a movie about dragons and trolls. It was cute. They both laughed when Simon dropped a potato from his fork and it rolled all the way down his chest and off his knee. It was a good time. They both knew and didn't think about why dinner was different from before, why they weren't sitting at the table. It wasn't the same, but that didn't only have to mean bad, just different.
Well, what a fantastically heartwarming story. I really, really liked how at first it starts in a place that is so relatable, like cooking, but you don't have all of the right ingredients, so you're just kind of trying to make do. But then the story goes to this place that's a lot more bitter, but in the sense, it's also very sweet at the very end to see that this small dish kind of brought this family even closer. So what kind of made you want to write this?
So, as usual, well, I shouldn't say it like that. So, as I've mentioned before, I've been trying to challenge myself of like looking at things that are slightly harder, and this is not the tearjerker I had initially it's not the tearjerker it could be, you know.
Yeah.
But I still was challenging myself because like about halfway through, my brain was like, okay, I just don't want to. I'm too tired. I don't want to start feeling bad. I should just switch to like a fantasy story where there's like punching, because it'll be easier for me to write that right now. But I decided not to. I decided to just write the hard thing, which is about loss and stuff. Not that it's you know that deep into it, but so yeah, that was the main thing of just, hey, let's actually try and do something somewhat emotional this time, Matias.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it was a really great choice to buckle down and do something emotional, because I can definitely feel what you're writing down coming across. And I think the thing that really did it for me was the addition of this little girl, because she was written very, very well. To the point where I can definitely believe that this was a actual child, kind of not fully grasping with the loss of their mother. So, exactly how did you go about writing someone that young?
I'm not entirely sure. Basically, I was using that method that I keep talking about, where I was just like, whatever pops into my head, I just wrote it down, and then if it needed to be moved, I would move it. So basically, it was very based off of like what was needed in the moment. Like I already had some lines of like it, you know, it's different, but it's not the same, but it's just different. Like that was there already as just like, you know, here's a message about how you can deal with this. And then other times there was times where I would write some description, or the character would get lost in a memory, and I wanted to, you know, shake them out of it, you know, get us to the next point. And using her dialogue was really easy for that. So I think I did that 2 times in this, but it was basically just based off of what would be kind of the most the sadder thing to do. That's not annoying. And so, you know, having a little girl like actually really trying really hard not to make things harder for her father is a decently sad thing to me. So, yeah, that was definitely part of my process there.
Yeah, no, and it definitely pulled it off. I mean, as I was reading the story, there were a few key moments where it shifted. You know, like first and foremost, it was the addition of that character, and then as it went on, I started to get a sense that the mother is missing, which was confirmed in the line where I think it was the girl. She said that I miss her too, Which, I mean, I think that was really nice that you didn't blatantly tell us too much, but you kind of kept some of it hidden, or at least or at least allowed us as the reader to kind of figure that out. So I thought that was done really well.
Yeah, I wanted to. This is not the masterstroke of this particular story, but it's definitely something that I was trying not to, just go out and say his wife was dead. Like, I think it's definitely more impactful if you're along with the characters of like they're also trying not to think about it, and it's something that like when they remember it, that's when it is sad for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so for readers, it's kind of the same thing where you don't really feel the loss until you're reminded of it.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
And I think that sort of like discovery that readers can have, I think is really, really enjoyable. I really like in other stories. And I think it was, half decently executed here. There's definitely some things I could have done to make it slightly more like of a dawning realization,
mm-hmm.
or slightly clearer of how it comes across. But yeah, I think it works okay. I'm decently happy with that.
Yeah, and I think one major thing would definitely be if you did have a lot more time. I know you would take your time when it comes to actually writing out some of these scenes, because like each scene seems, or each moment, I should say, seemed like it could have been so much longer and so much in detail. But at the same time, I did like the pacing of this story and how it was very streamlined throughout. I definitely meant to. If I had been more awake and more, I don't know, just feeling a little bit better, and if I returned to it, I definitely would add at least, one or two other little scenes of remembrance or remembering loss, and just kind of draw out the arc from feeling the loss to accepting it as something that is just accepting the current situation as different rather than just loss. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, okay. Well, so if you did have that second opportunity, I know you were saying that you were more so working towards building a rough frame of a story, but if you did have more time to really flesh it out, how would the story change?
So there definitely would be more moments of like characterizing this mother who's not here, and drawing out what are the impacts to each character in particular. There's a slight implication I wanted at the end, basically, of like, I don't think it came across at all, but where they all ate at the dinner table when it was the three of them, but now it's just the two of them. Why not go and watch a movie together, kind of thing.
Okay.
Where that's a thing where it's definitely not the same of being able to talk to your mom or wife, but at the very least they are finding some sort of connection that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
So stuff like that.
And I think with like this story that would definitely really work in showing how like this kind of post grieving moment it doesn't resemble what it was, but it kind of turns into something new. And I think that would be really great if you tried to explore that more. Yeah.
And then overall, just general polish, drawing out things a little bit longer. It definitely with emotions, I need to focus a little bit more on how to make them come across without feeling clunky, because I always feel a little awkward when I do it. So I think I'm going to go look at how other books do really emotional moments and try to take some notes.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know, I know doing emotion is always really difficult, especially if it's not something that you have directly been through. Like I find it very easy to definitely pull from that personal experience, but like stepping into a story like this, I don't know if your wife has died, and if so, I am very sorry. But I don't know, I do think you did a really good job of trying to put us as the reader in this room and trying to play with the psychology that a person like this may feel. But yeah, it's really great.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Of course. And of course, we have to ask, what did you learn?
Definitely that being tired affects my writing, but
Okay.
but also that even if it does, I still can push through and pull out some decent things. So, I think feeling more self-assured in that is really important.
Yeah, definitely. And it is really good that you did like push through into doing something that is very challenging, because I know like us as writers, it's very easy to do what you are comfortable with, because what you are comfortable with is very comfortable to you. But of course, the only way to grow is to push past it. And like, yeah, just by reading this, I have seen some really great growth. So yeah, really proud of you.
Thank you very much. All right, let's get into the listener submitted story section.
Woohoo! This is the listener submitted stories section, which means we are going to talk about the stories we are about to announce. So, after we say them, you should probably pause this, go, give them a little old read, and then come back so you can analyze these texts with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what are the authors that we're going to be reading from today?
So, the stories we are going to be reading this week are by Captain Rhino, Zakatigi, Nicked You, Haunt of the Heron, and Sithril, which is a new writer.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Let's get into them. So starting off with Haunt of the Heron, with a story called "Titles Are Just Another Kind of Lie We Tell Ourselves," which is a very fun, slightly meta title. I enjoy that. So we open here with a expositionary piece talking about how every once in a while the Leviathan makes its way to shore and devours a fishing town or two. And so this kind of eldritch abomination, gigantic mountain-sized whale of a creature will just eat up a town. But apparently, when you are devoured by Leviathan, you don't actually just automatically die. You actually go into its stomach, which a whole city is living there. It's not a great place. There's lots of stomach acids floating around and limited resources, which we see when our main character, who is doing some rescue and salvage, is rowing their way up through the esophagus. I think that's right. Yeah, right. Yeah. Up to the esophagus to do some salvage after a town was just recently devoured, and so we get some nice little internal dilemmas where the character actually really would prefer to be salvaging and taking actual things, but instead, has a heart of gold and is spending their time saving people. And there's one particular example here where someone is hanging from the prow of a ship as a box of medicine floats away, and so they have to choose, and they choose saving the person. And it's a kind of an ordeal. We get a little bit of action there as they get close to death, and then they start rowing back to the city and grimacing because their only haul is the kid that they saved, which is not a lot.
Yeah. And honestly, this story has a really great voice throughout that fits the world building very much so. Like, as soon as I started reading it and I was introduced to this idea of like a giant city-sized Leviathan, I was instantly in. And then like seeing how within this city, it's like there's this other kind of job where someone has to go out and then save and salvage people. I thought it was just a really cool idea overall. And then when we got down to the action, it was paced very, very well to where I knew exactly what was going on, which to me is kind of hard to do, especially since we're inside of a giant stomach. So really great story.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think as Haunt of the Heron wrote it, probably it started off the exposition, and then once they found what their setting was, they then transitioned to that voice. and it was all part of the process of just like finding what they want to write.
Yeah.
And I think this is just really fun.
Nice. All right. So next up is by Nick Yu with Working.
So here we start off with another day at the plant. Nothing special, just hour after hour of tedious work, which is basically the summary of what goes on action-wise in this story. We have this main character, John, talking to Bobby, and they basically just exchange idle conversation as they work on these giant vats, making sure that the temperatures are correct and the fluids are flowing and all sorts of stuff. It's basically we start having this pattern of they exchange some really idle talk, and it's intentionally as bland as possible. How was your weekend? It was all right. Nothing special. Yeah, I hear you. How about you? Same. Nothing special. Yeah. Same old. Yeah. So, yeah, you can kind of tell there's not much going on in their minds. And then as we go, we slightly develop these characters. We develop more of a scene of what this plant looks like until finally we start getting hints of what's going on here, where they talk about how they make all this stuff with all this fanciness, but at the end of the day, we just put it in us to fill up our belly, right? So it's implied that whatever's in these vats is what they use for food. Until finally at the end, we basically have revealed that what is in these vats is liquefied babies or something.
Yeah, or like, because like I got the idea that it was just like a vat of stem cells or something.
Yeah, something like that. I think harvested from babies, though, is the implication. Like, they're not just like fetuses either. And basically at the end, they exchange another idle conversation about that, of like, they are mildly concerned. They're like, this is probably like not like good, right? Yeah, but like, it's the economy, you know what you're gonna do. And which I thought was just a delightful kind of like understanding of how people accept the horrors of the world.
Yeah, no, I think this story is really well done. I mean, I love the idle conversation. I think it's nailed very well, because I know I've had 1,000 conversations exactly like that with the people that I work with. And then on top of that, as we're going through their day-to-day routine, I think the sudden twist of this thing that they're working on not only being a vast food source, but also being made of babies was very shocking, and really gave us a lot more insight into what this world really is. So yeah, I thought it was just really well done and like right with world building. So really great.
I thought it was just a delightful commentary on how we kind of just we're fine with whatever's going on because it's going on and what you're gonna do. So
exactly.
The next story is by Sithril with What's Your Name? And Sithril is a friend of mine who's finally started to write. So thank you very much for joining us, Sithril. So we start off with our character. We later learn is named Yasudhara, waking up from a bed on the step. So she's basically resting there. She's been there for 5 days, resting there after getting pretty horribly injured. Her feet apparently are all blistered and cut up and all sorts of things, and her entire body is somewhat like that as well. So she's had a pretty bad time. And so we get a little bit of exposition there before this child walks in and starts having a conversation here with her. And I think that's where the story kind of picks up, where we get a lot more of natural feeling exposition about how Yasudhara is actually from the far west and traveled long and far because they were there was bad people there chasing her. So we kind of get like hints of like, ooh, there's some sort of plot going on there. It's not just criminals or something. It's probably like some terrible plot. But she got all the way to the steppe until her horse died and the bad people stopped following her. But she was alone on the plains, which we kind of, from the implication from the shock that the child displays when they hear that, was that it's basically impossible to live there. But she survived. She ate wild onions and scared off a wolf. Which
like in Holes.
Is that? I don't remember that. Did
yeah,
that happen?
they went up to the mountain and then they found wild onions, and that was the only thing that kept them alive.
Wow, that's. I need to watch Holes again.
Please do. It's a cinematic masterpiece.
It's. I think it's probably Shia LaBeouf's most incredible work.
Yeah, sadly.
Well, I mean, second to his performance in Transformers. So.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Let's go. How can you forget about Transformers? Anyway, the child kind of reacts with a shock again with this idea that she scared off a wolf, and kind of tells her this folk wisdom of how anyone who can scare off a wolf must have wolf blood. And so we sort of get, there's a little, some character moment. She pretends to scare the kid by making like a wolf like claws. So it's really cute. But also we kind of get the implication that there's probably more to this statement than just an idle statement from a child. Yeah.
I think this is a really great intro to a story that could definitely go on. And I think the character work here is definitely what takes the center stage. Like, we start in the mind of this main character as they're taking in certain things, and then we get to know more about their backstory as to how they got here. And I thought it was done really well. And I think the other characters were very purposeful in kind of reinforcing that characterization of the main character. So yeah, I would definitely love to see more from this story.
Yeah, I think Honda the Heron, who left a really long comment, which left a long comment here and in a couple other stories, which I thought was really cool. Basically saying that the second half is a bit stronger than the first, and I think I agree with that. I think the beginning is kind of our author kind of figuring out what is the setting and what is this character voice.
It is getting the ball rolling, but towards the second half, the ball was speeding down the hill.
Yeah, once the dialogue is there, these characters are not only exchanging information back and forth, but exchanging voice, and I think it goes the way that things are phrased, and how Yasutara is both hiding things, to keep herself safe, but also hiding things from a child, not to scare the child. I think reveals a lot about her, and I think it's really enjoyable. So I think basically going through the dialogue and then going back to the beginning and going through there, I think would be pretty effective.
Yeah, definitely. But thank you very much for writing for your first time. And next up is Zakatiki with Agitating Tree Spirits, a treatise.
So this is a sort of like essay about tree spirits and how you can bother them, which is a really interesting idea.
It's so awesome. It's something that I didn't know. I really want it, to be honest.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to summarize here because it's a lot of information. So I think I'm going to kind of end up explaining it a bit non-linearly. But we start off essentially talking about what these tree spirits are and what their key characteristics are. So tree spirits, as opposed to other kinds of spirits, are rooted in one place. And they might hate their place, they might like the place, but they never will admit that moving is a good thing. And they're kind of pretty much out of control of what goes on around them, but they will complain about it, and they can be easily bothered, and they hold grudges forever, and they have like a lot of things that they have to rely on that they are constantly bothered with one way or another. So then the treatise transitions into talking about how it's best to bother them, what strategies are best to make them agitated, and chopping down one is not the plan. Instead, there should be small bothersomeness, like cutting off a river so that there's less water, but they don't know that you did it, or blocking out the sun a little bit, that kind of thing. And taking your time and making them agitated. And once they're agitated for a good long time. And so sort of the implication here is that there's some sort of use to having an agitated forest. In which we get some implications here, some brushstrokes, some directions on what sort of magic is going on here, ending with, for further uses of an agitated forest, turn to page 36. For ways to calm down an angered wood, turn to page 38. For methods of intimidating or quieting the local grove, turn to page 41. And so we just get the implication that for some reason, getting the entire forest in a particular emotional state is very useful or has some other effects. And I think that's really fun.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think this story is just pure world building, presented through this really cool frame that reads very much so like a manual. And yeah, I think the information in it is told in such a way that, I don't know, it's very fun to read it and to learn more about these tree spirits. So I think it's like wholeheartedly creative, and I would love to see what's on page 34.
Yeah, I'm sure that Zakategi probably doesn't actually know what all the implications of using an agitated forest is.
But I do think that just this story creates that curiosity very easily.
For sure. It really does make you want to know more. I'm very interested in finding out, which is a lot of fun. So thanks for putting this together.
All right, so our final story for this week is by Captain Rhino with Redemption.
So this is an interesting story here. We have a sort of this style of narration that is kind of like tour guide-esque, sort of a narrator speaking to you as the camera swoops around a landscape. And as we pass each location or image or people, we get a sort of description of who they are, what this is, what the past is, and what might happen, what is going to happen here in the future. So this is a very interesting method of storytelling, I think. So the story that we get revealed here is that there's this giant palace up above a city. So King Harold built this palace wanting to announce that wars are over, but he in the process became Harold the Last. And so we swoop upwards. We see these knights and Lord Selby who are marching up at this present moment. We go inside. We see the entrance hall, and we go back and talk about how this is basically where the rebellion started, when King Harold laughed at someone who needed help. And we go outwards. We find some other places of some other instigations of this rebellion, until finally we go above to the exterior of the dome on top, where Lord Selby is going to, and this is in the near future, will climb the ladder and replace the royal standard with the banner of his house. And then we have a little twist here. He's not actually the hero of the story. He's winning the rebellion, but he's actually going to be a terrible leader, which we get revealed as we go to the market square in the city, where he's going to be executed later on. Mm-hmm. And we pass the court. We find out eventually there will be a democracy here, which will be complicated but also great. And this is just a great, journey through all this, where we finally settle on a farmhouse some miles outside the city, where it turns out that King Harold actually went, and he's going to live there, and he's going to raise chickens, he's going to raise piglets, and this is where he's going to redeem himself, not in any fight or anything like that, but just as a simple farmer.
Well, yeah, so I really love the frame of this story. I love how it's basically just this tour of this city, which is coupled with a whole bunch of bits about the history of this city, and it was a very nice balance between the two. And yeah, it's definitely something that I haven't really seen before, but I don't know. I just really love the voice that's being used here, and the story is definitely ripe with surprise, like where Lord Tarley basically ended up not being the good guy, and how this king wasn't killed, but rather was able to redeem himself by living a lower class life. So yeah, I just think it's a really nice and a very tight story that I would definitely recommend people come and read.
Yeah, what I think is so interesting about it is that even though we are kind of moving from like in this one present moment, and we're doing this in this very detached way, the path, I guess, that the camera takes, ends up drawing out this very complete and almost chronologically understood story.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's just a great example of how even if you are using a format like this that is non-traditional narrative, you can still structure in a way that you carry out a really solid and pretty easily understood story.
Yeah, definitely. So I would definitely commend Captain Rhino for definitely using a very, as you said, non-traditional way of telling this story, but it works very well for the story. So thank you very much.
That's right.
Well, all right. That is all of the stories for this week. We wish we could take 17 hours going through every single last story that was submitted, but we are both quite tired. But we still want to say thank you to everyone who did submit. So thank you very much to Haunt of the Heron.
Thank you, Sarah Penguin.
Thank you, Ace of Sword.
Thank you, Nick Dew.
Thank you, Sithril.
And again, thanks for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jarby Jaws.
Thank you, Zakatigi.
And thank you, Captain Rhino.
And also, we want to say thank you to everyone that left a comment. Leaving a comment not only allows you to look into your own writing and try to figure out what worked and what didn't work, but also you provide that feedback for someone else, which is pretty much the whole reason why we are doing this podcast. So thank you very much to Haunt of the Heron, Captain Rhino, Jarby Jazz, Sithril, Sarah Penguin, and Ace of Sword.
Yeah, you guys did a great job. There was some really in-depth comments, and I was very satisfied to see that. And a lot of them increased my enjoyment of the story that I was reading too. So
yeah, so fantastic comments this week. If you want to be like all of these wonderful writers, you can do that by going to our subreddit, which is /r/do the right thing. All you have to do is sit down for 30 minutes, use 3 of 4 randomly generated words of that week in your story, and submit it in the comment section.
That's right. How does the rest of this go? If you don't have a Reddit account, or you just want to send us some sort of comment, you can send us an email at rightthingcast@gmail.com.
And if you want to see next week's words early, you can do that by going to our Twitter, which is @rightthingcast, where we will post the next week's words once a week, and we will also keep you updated on any changes that could be happening to Do the Right Thing.
Yeah, like how this episode was 2 days late. So that's how you would find out about that.
Mm-hmm, because we posted it there first.
Mm-hmm. If you like what we do here at not only Do the Right Thing, but Doof Media in general, you can consider donating $1 a month or whatever else you can afford. We do a lot of stuff here, and I'm really excited about it. Well, actually, right now, which I haven't been able to announce on Decomposing Worm, but because it's bi-weekly, so I don't get to announce it until next week. But there is a Decomposing Worm / Pale Reflections fan art contest going on right now. Actually, there's a
that's
whole
cool.
month to get entries in. There's cash prizes. And it's just a really great way for the community to come together. And I think it's one of my favorite things that we do here, because it's just promoting more content and giving back to the community that we're part of. Basically, the rules for it, I forget if we have a theme. If there is a theme, it's on the Doof Media website. But basically, the rules are that you can do fan art of basically any web serial except for Twig, because it's the only one that we haven't touched. So... if you want to do fan art for Worm or Ward or Pact or Pale, please do. And then you can send it in.
Cool. And Matias, exactly what is going on in Doof?
So I think this week that this episode comes out is the game club for Outer Wilds, which is I heard some good things. And actually, both I think Elliot, Ruben, and Scott, I think, have been streaming their playthroughs of it, which I think you can find on the Doof Plays YouTube channel, and the entire VODs there. It was actually like a big community thing. I hadn't really been participating, but I saw it happening, and it seemed like a lot of fun, where some of our patrons, shout out to Hero of Old Iron, was putting together like a spreadsheet, and some other people. I'm sorry, I only saw a passing reference, but there was other people involved, so you guys are awesome. But basically tracking all of the like paths that all of our streamers took, and sort of just taking notes about each session, which is really cool.
That's
apparently crazy. Elliot's stream very recently was, as I understand it, no spoilers, but as I understand it, he basically got like one step away from finishing the game, and then was just very confused for like 40 minutes, just didn't. It just like was 40, like basically was like one button press away from finishing the game, but just didn't see the button, I guess. So as I understood that was a very frustrating part of the stream, and I very much enjoyed reading the comment section as it was going on.
Nice.
And also the book club is actually, it was supposed to go this week, but it's been delayed 1 week. The book for this month, it was the first 15 lives of Harry August. So you have another whole week to read that. It's gonna be live streamed on August 7th at 9:30 p.m. Central. And the next book is going to be announced this Friday, when it was supposed to be, when the stream was supposed to be. So, if you like the book club, join up. If you haven't tried the book club, join up. It's a good time. I really enjoy doing that. If I wasn't speed reading Worm and also keeping up with Pale, and also doing a couple other things, I would be keeping up with the book club as well.
So Matias, why don't you tell me? Next week's words, are they what?
Actually, right before we talk about that, I did want to just put out there how you and I are considering doing some changes to the Do the Right Thing format.
Yes, we are.
So just to be clear, so next episode, it's episode 69. So, we have to do that. It's going to be, we're going to do it based off of romance. We are not going to write smut. You can, if you want.
Yes.
Just make sure it's tagged at the beginning, and that summarizing it will be a little bit more difficult for us, because I'm not going to describe.
We never talked about us not writing smut.
Can you not, though?
I was under the impression that I can go all out.
That's...
What if it's like... Okay, what if it's like not
What if it's very
smut?
tasteful?
Yeah, what if it's not smut, but just sexual and gross?
Sexual and gross. You know what, Jarvis? You can do whatever you want.
Yes!
I'm gonna regret this. Okay. Actually, okay. Here it is. You can. So I was gonna say, if you write smut, it will be a little bit difficult for me to summarize, because I'm not going to describe every action of a sex scene.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you use euphemisms for the entire thing. Like, in Skyrim, the lusty Argonian maid, right?
Yes.
Where they're like using euphemisms the whole time. Like, if it's like that, I'll do a decent job of summarizing it. Okay? If like every single action could theoretically be a real act, like a real action, a non-sexual action.
Yeah.
Then I might summarize it more than just saying a sex scene happens.
Okay. So our audience just has to practice double speak.
Yeah, that's the challenge. So anyway, the next episode is going to be a standard, slightly special episode. The episode after that, we are actually going to have a guest, Joey Wennert. Again, will be coming over. I think we're actually going to be writing scripts. I think that's what's the challenge that week.
Yeah.
And it might be also their co-host from their podcast, Keep It Short.
Oh, cool.
Which is,
so we might have 4 people on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you and I are supposed to go over on that one too. So
yeah, a little bit of
we'll
cross-pollination.
That one gets closer. Yes. But after that, we don't necessarily have anything planned. We just know that between Decomposing Worm and our upcoming classes, right? It's for me anyway, I'm having like less and less time, and I think Jarvis is kind of in a similar boat, right?
Yeah, for me at least, it's a thing to where doing the right thing isn't really terribly time consuming, but I just personally want to put a lot more of my creative chips in different barrels.
Sure.
In a sense, yeah.
And the thing is, we would never want to just like drop do the right thing, especially because you guys are writing along, and that's what we're most proud of. And we again, that's the reason I started this, is because I missed so-called writers. So we are slightly considering, and you guys let us know if we're slightly considering just having the listener submitted story section as the main section, and kind of just make this like a community upkeep sort of podcast.
Yeah.
We might talk about slightly more stories in that case, not doubled, because then it would just be kind of a slog, I think, but maybe 6 or 7. But let us know. If we did that, would you guys just stop listening? Is the question.
On the other hand, we would definitely be able to have a lot more time to actually do some analysis on the stories that are being submitted. And yeah, it would be great if you would let us know if you would want, I guess, more advice on the stories, or if you like what we're kind of doing with it right now. Overall, it'll kind of be beneficial for the both of us, and also keeping the actual time of the podcast shorter, along with allowing us to kind of try different things when it comes to this podcast.
Sure. So just some options that we're thinking of, and nothing's really settled. And we want to hear y'all's feedback, because this is kind of why we do the podcast, is to provide an opportunity for people to write. So
exactly that, and self-aggrandizing.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to post a discussion thread for this episode, even though I keep forgetting for all of them. But this one for sure I will, because I want to hear y'all's comments. Or you guys can send us an email, or if you're a patron on the Discord, send me a DM, or just discuss it in the channel, whatever else. Okay, let's just announce next week's words and get on with it, right?
Sure. So next week's words are, drum roll, please.
Drum roll.
Thank you, drum. Next week's words are lead, last, club, and bread.
So we actually have some good variety here, I think. Well, at least with lead and club. So lead, which is you could also make it someone that is a leader. It is the verb of leading, right? To be the one in charge of a group and sort of taking them somewhere. Or you could just like lead someone particularly from one place to another. Or it can be a lead, which I'm pretty sure is basically like a leash, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Or it could be led, so like bullets. Or just like graphite. The metal. Yeah, it could. You could. Yeah, like the lead in the pencil, which is not actually lead, but we do call it that.
For some reason.
Last, which is the opposite of first. It's the very last one. I think it's there's not a lot of variety here, but I think it's a pretty strong word.
Yeah.
Someone is dead last. Someone is the last X. The last time you see someone, that kind of thing. I think focusing around this one might be fun.
Yeah.
Club, which like a nightclub, for example, or a club sandwich. Which I don't even... What is that exactly? It's
I think a club sandwich is like any sandwich with like bread and lettuce and like... I think it's like a sandwich that specifically has cold cuts.
Okay. So a club sandwich, you could do a golf club or any other sort of club.
Soda.
Or you could do a club soda. Or you could do like a club, like the weapon, where you club someone over the head. Clubbing someone over the head is also another verb you can use. And then the very last one, bread, which is the food that you eat.
And there's no other definition for bread.
That's right. Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
I'm trying really hard because like I was thinking of like pure bread, but that's spelt differently.
Yes, it is.
Well, bread is strong on its own. Bread is the focal point of every dish. So
I'm really hungry now.
Me too. Have you eaten today?
No.
No. What you need to do? You need to run up to like some store, drop $20 and fill up, bro. Carbo load.
What story are you writing next week, Jarvis?
Next week, the story that I am writing next week is going to be about this club in my high school that basically took over the Glee Club. And it was the Bread Club. You see, many people don't know this, but Pflugerville High School was very popular when it came to its culinary expertise. A couple of teachers and about 69 students all got together to create Bread Club, where they basically just talk about bread. They bake bread. They share their best bread recipes. The only downside to Bread Club was that even though they had so many members, they were last on the list of the list of clubs that actually get any sort of funding. So Bread Club didn't really have any yeast, which if you know bread how I know bread, yeast is like the second most important ingredient in bread. So
okay. What's the first one?
Love.
Mm-hmm.
And flour, I think, and water. But yeah, so since they were last and they didn't have any yeast, instead of yeast, they had to use whatever they could find. I mean, sometimes they just used like old mold and then just scraped it off of their apples and like kind of sprinkled it over the bread in hopes that all of that bacteria would like help it rise. I even remember this story of this young dumb kid who had so much of that, that like a loose lead, that loose lead for mechanical pencils. And he was under the impression that somehow had yeast-like properties. So we put a whole bunch of lead in it. I mean, so much lead to where the entire gooey bread goo turned into this grayish black hunk of really gross bread.
Sounds crunchy.
Yeah, it was very crunchy, apparently, because he managed to get at least 3 bites in before he vomited and died in the middle of Pflugerville High School. Yeah.
That's tragic.
Yeah, and then they closed down Bread Club because, no club can stand when it has bodies.
They covered it up. Yeah.
Oh. The old bread club scandal.
Yeah.
So what story are you writing?
So my story is going to be about the last baker. So about 2,000 years in the future, this is after the second apocalypse of humanity, something like that. Which is actually a misnomer. There was actually 3, but everyone kind of forgets the middle one.
Okay.
So, society is kind of restarting, but it basically the only food available is wheat. That is the only food that survived other than other humans, right? So you have your 2 food groups. You've got human meat and you've got wheat. And so the art of making bread has actually been forgotten for about 700 years or so. And so everyone's just kind of chewing on the wheat kernels, which is kind of like just kind of making flour in your mouth and then swallowing it, which is not super great. But there was one line of bakers that survived in cryo chambers, but all of them died except for one, the very last baker. And so they emerged from the catacombs under Houston and go to the surface world, where they are immediately they're recognized by their hat and mitts and stuff, and so it's sort of kind of a fabled legendary outfit, right, with the apron and everything. And so they're immediately made leader of the Southern Confederacy of really starving states, and have to lead them to greatness, clubbing down any enemy and making sure that their faction is the strongest in the world because they have that fabled food, bread.
Wow. I think that idea should be what you write your script on in a 2
Except make
weeks.
it a romance.
Oh, romance.
I'm really hungry. I'm really hungry, Jarvis.
And I wish I was the last baker. But you know what? I think right now the best thing for us to do is go and eat. That would be the right thing to do.
Thanks, because I'm hungry. I'm gonna go now. Bye. I'm hungry.